This podcast is for the sales professionals at every level. If you want to convert more prospects into paying customers, then you're in the right place. Because Joe has spent the last 3 decades mastering buying behaviors, personality types, emotional and logical triggers. This is the Sales Genius Podcast. It's only a numbers game if you want educated. It's time to get educated. Let's go! Educated. Want to learn how to close deals. Want to learn how to sell more. That's what we're here for at Sales Genius. Let's go!
All right, welcome to the Sales Genius Podcast with Joe Ingram. I am not Joe Ingram. I'm Coach Dan Gordon. I'm subbing for Joe, who is out on a super secret mission for the CIA. But I am thrilled to be here and welcome to the Sales Genius, Joseph Michelli, Ph.D. Joseph is a world-renowned customer experience expert and New York Times best-selling author. Joseph's work in customer service has shaped the standards of big brands like Ritz-Carlton, Mercedes-Benz, Starbucks, Zappos, Airbnb, a very, very prestigious list. And as a professor of service excellence, Joseph has dedicated his career to helping leaders and teams elevate the experiences that we as customers receive the world over. Dr. Joseph Michelli, welcome to the Sales Genius Podcast.
Hey, Dan, I think you could probably sell me anything with that opening. but I'm not convinced that Joe really is on a secret mission for the CIA, because if he was, we wouldn't know about it. That's my opinion.
I guess it's not so terribly secret now. So let's add our crew to the stage here. Hey, gang. Welcome.
Hey.
So we're gonna put you front and center, Doc. Let's see. Oh, no, that's me front and center. So this is, look at this. Yeah. There you
that
go.
would be me front and center. That's more fun.
There you go. All right. So we are working this as we can, but let's dive in. So can we just get right into the center of this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to. I mean, I view sales as a part of an experience. It's
right.
The phase of selling the value. So I think about business from the standpoint of creating value for customers at every touch point. You know, it was Peter Drucker who said, we're not in business to create a profit. We're in business to create a customer. And it's customers that profits come. So, you know, obviously we have to have something of value. Once we have that value, we have to find the people who value what we have created. And so that's the marketing phase of a customer journey. And then we have to communicate to that target audience who's really attracted to the value in the product, the very attributes and benefits of that product to their lifestyle. And we have to envelop that sales process in an emotional experience that resonates with people, that triggers all the drivers for purchase intent. And then once we get them to the close on that, we then need to maintain a relationship with them where we service that product to the degree that the product needs service. And we need to be able to use that service cycle and leverage ourselves back into a repurchase, a call to sequel of the original purchase intent. So all of that to me is just this customer journey.
Yeah.
The sales phase is a critically important one because it's what keeps the lights on for the rest of the stuff.
Sure.
But clearly it is the phase that I think is of most note to the folks who are regulars to this format. And it's important to understand really what are you trying to do at every single touch point, whether that's pre-sale, post-sale, and certainly all of the important touch points as you're nurturing your leads into your sales funnel.
And I really love what you said, right? It's an emotional experience. So let me ask you this. What's the biggest mistake that most companies make when it comes to creating a great customer experience?
All right. So my career has been consulting for Fortune 500 companies predominantly. So I've written 2 books about Starbucks. I started working with Starbucks in the ancient of days when there really, there's a little Starbucks in Seattle that started the whole thing. But the real epigenesis of this brand are 3 individuals. We call them H2O. It's Howard Schultz, who gets all of the notoriety, Howard Behar, who I just spoke to yesterday, and Warren Smith, who passed some time ago. But we called it H2O for the 2 Howards and the Oren. And literally in that early phase of understanding this product, they were selling a product that in the United States was was not particularly popular. People were not drinking espresso in large quantities. In fact, there were more private jets sold in the US than there was espresso coffee being sold. So clearly it was not a taste profile that the United States was accustomed to. We were used to instant coffee or diner coffee. We certainly were more in the lack of Arabica bean coffee. So Howard Schultz has to create this experience, which is really a romantic Italian coffee house experience, really at the time more built on an emotional theme of creating a third place, a place between work and home, where people could feel affordable luxury and sit down and savor a cup of coffee. So that was the rationale behind this product that really executed with a strategic sales goal of getting from Seattle, where they started, to Portland, Oregon, 2 hours to the south. And quite literally, they made it. They did it. They were able to successfully expand to Portland, Oregon from Seattle, and really, I think, sell an emotional experience enveloping a cup of coffee.
Right. And so, like, essentially what they did is they created your living room, or a living room, like somewhere else. And it, instead of a restaurant, which is, okay, let's just turn over tables as fast as we can, they essentially said, stay here as long as you like. And people did. Right?
And they did, to the point where the brand outgrew its supply chains. It was growing 5 stores a day. And now there's been a real reversal of fortunes for the brand. And the newest CEO, who's currently in the Starbucks CEO seat, is claiming he wants to go back to the coffee house experience as opposed to the highly transactional, barely can we manage the number of orders we get through the mobile device, let alone those that happen when people come in store. So there's been a change kind of in the consumer over time. And I think that needs to be honored. But the point of the foundational story of Starbucks, at least, is a group of leaders who realized in order to differentiate a cup of coffee and be able to charge $4 for it, which is an alternative name for the brand, $4 or Charbucks, right? To charge that, you can't do what they were doing at the diners, or you can't do it at a convenience store where they were charging 75 cents at the time.
Sure. And so what can we learn, right? The smaller companies, the solopreneurs, the smallpreneurs, what can we learn about creating a great customer experience?
Well, I write all my books for that audience. Trust me. There's a heck of a lot more of those than there are Fortune 500 CEOs, right? So that audience, I think, early is the fundamental thing you can learn from a lot of companies that do it really well, is to start with understanding what you want every customer to feel every time. No excuses. I mean, it is an emotional truth. Every touch point I have in the sales cycle, what do I want people to feel by the time they leave? It could be something as simple as special. I want them to feel like they're not everybody else, that this is not my 50th transaction of the day. This is your transaction now. And that's a fundamental difference. That might be one of them. There could be other things that you want them to feel, but you need to know, and it can't be everything. Because if you say, I want them to have all the positive, happy puppy dogs and rainbows kind of experiences, well, then you're really not going to be able to execute or design that into your process, which is a critically important thing. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's take the Ritz-Carlton, which is this book somewhere up in here. The Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company and a hotel in Dubai. So the hotel that Ritz-Carlton has in Dubai is really a pretty squatty hotel, to be quite honest with you, relative to the incredible money that is in hotels in Dubai. But this particular hotel outperforms every other hotel when it comes to their spa. And the reason they do that is because they over-deliver and build in emotional value. So if you were to get a 45-minute spa appointment at the Ritz-Carlton in Dubai, it would last an hour. Now, the therapist is actually booked out for an hour and 15 minutes. They're charging you the equivalent of an hour and 15-minute appointment. Kid you not, right? But you walk out with built-in over-delivery. Every single time you're nurtured more than you deserved. And that type of design is what I think every person can think about. Where can I surprise you with over delivery that I've already built into my pricing mechanism? It's not like I'm scraping to make that happen. I'm figuring out ways to build that into my margin. In my world, for example, I do a lot of public speaking, and we just charge a flat fee for our travel. We do not per diem it. We don't send you receipts after we do the big speech. We want you to leave with a big old standing ovation and high emotional energy. We certainly don't want to then come back out and say, oh, sorry, we got an extra cup of coffee we'd like to invoice you for at the airport on the way home, right? Like, that's not the last touch point we want in our relationship. So my point is, I think you have to figure out, what do you want emotionally to deliver? In the case of Ritz-Carlton, it's nurturance. It is to have every single person feel like they entered the home of a loving parent. The core value of that brand is, I want you to feel like you walked into a loving parent's home. Employees understand that. They're selected on their capacity to deliver against it. And then once they've defined it, now we're going to just empower them to do that. And so what would mama do? We would often ask, and if the employee said, I didn't have a loving parent, we'd say, well, imagine you had one. What might they do? But what is it that they would do? So that the fundamental message is, what do you want every single customer to feel every single time? No excuses. That's the starting point. And you should have a limit to about 3 or 4 things. It should not be everything. It might be special, understood, valued. It may be appreciated. It may be welcomed. It could be a variety of different things. But you want to make sure that you have a tight list, and that every single person on your organization knows what you're trying to execute. And you actually can even ask your customers along the way, on a scale of 0 to 10, how special did you feel when you were interacting with our sales team member?
And let's say, like, I'm a CPA, right? Run a little CPA firm. I don't have a spa. Right? And I'm thinking, well, how can I really give somebody that mothering, parental customer experience? What do you
So
suggest?
I have a CPA that I coach, and he is just remarkable. And his commitment is to keep his people informed, so that they really trust that he's on the cutting edge. He's thinking about them. So he segments his book of business, right? So he has this high net worth clients, he has this mid book client, and he's got the lower book client. The high book client, he's doing all kinds of things to wow them. Literally, he's got his team listening actively to what's going on in their lives. Let's say they're going to a special golf retreat somewhere. It's likely they're going to have a dozen golf balls delivered on the first tee to that kind of client, right? Like, it's crazy, intense listening that allows that person to feel remarkably special, because he doesn't want to lose that client, because he's got a lot of value in them. Mid-book, it might be something more around, hey, here's some things that I know because you are whatever your area of interest is. It might be a specialty area of yours. He segments it out. Maybe it's the university you went to. He's then sending out active things that are more generic or generalized, if you will. And then when you get down to the base book, he's going to be sending you just updates that make it sound like he's on top of it, and you're getting some inside information early on tax law that's relevant to you. So my point is that he can't deliver that kind of value at the high end in terms of wow and specialness, but he's creating a strategy that he can execute against with his team.
And I love what you said, Dr. Michelli, about listening, right? That, like you hear that he enjoys playing golf, or that he's going to play golf, and suddenly he goes to play, and there's these great set of golf balls waiting for him, right? Those are the small things. And I think anybody can engage in that.
Yeah, the book on Mercedes, I worked with Mercedes when they were 22nd on the JD Power in terms of customer satisfaction. Now, this is a brand that goes to market with, we're best or nothing, right? They consider themselves the creators of the automobile. And ultimately, they've got incredible engineers at Daimler. But when it comes to engineering a customer experience, they really weren't on it. And so we really focused on 4 key behaviors to execute better sales and to turn their salespeople into lifelong customers and create lifelong value. So we focused on listening. So that was the first. That's why that cued in for me. The next thing was empathizing. So you can listen for understanding, kind of cognitive, intellectual listening. You can listen for emotional, the so what of the what, right? Like, so what does it mean to the person? So we've got listening, empathizing, adding value. Sometimes adding value is as simple as fixing something for someone, going out and getting information. Sometimes adding value is helping them find a feature on their car or empowering them to do something for themselves. Sometimes it's just being present, but add value and then delight. And so the last of it was to driven to delight. And certainly If you take the acronym, it means lead. You listen, empathize, add value, and delight. And that is what we focused on to drive them from 22nd on the JD Power to perennially now 1 or 2, and sometimes they slip to 3.
Wow, really nice. And I really love what you said. It's like they're great engineers, but not great at engineering a customer experience. And engineers typically are not necessarily people.
Yeah.
Right. They focus on things. And by the way, in terms of being a people person and listening, we have some panelists here. We have some other people on the Sales Genius. Malaysia, JR, Andrea, please feel free to jump in if you have questions, thoughts. What do you got for us?
Yeah, actually, I'm wondering, you talked about the different levels depending on where they were at. So you have your higher level, your mid, and your low. How can you create an exceptional client experience no matter what level you are actually at? So
It's a brilliant question. I mean, the truth of it is you have to create that foundationally for every single person who walks in your door. And I think it starts with just mapping the experience, right? So when I was talking earlier about all the phases of the journey, where are you interacting with your customers? And that includes digitally on your website, wherever a customer is creating a perception of an interaction point with your brand. And we would call that a touch point, right? So we're going to evaluate these touch points, and you can't make sure that every single one of those is perfect every single time. And the longer your sales relationship with somebody, or the longer your overall customer relationship is, the more likely you're going to have some breakdowns. So Starbucks is a kind of an in and out sort of thing, but if you're building somebody's house, that's a whole different sort of phenomena. So you have to look at the overall touch points, and then you have to identify where are the high value touch points. And we know a lot from empirical research from behavioral economists about what those are. They tend to be arrival moments. So as soon as, Dan came on today, he was like, yes, we're here, and it's exciting. And even though Joe's not here, he's got a joke, he's got us there, and we're all like pulled in, right? So the arrival moment was brilliantly done. And I think arrival moments are always important, whether that's on the phone, on your website, in person. And then there's a couple of other touch points that are really important. Transition moments are particularly important. So if I am going from a salesperson to a service department, that's a big touch point. So back to Mercedes-Benz, we literally changed our incentive structure at the owned and operated Mercedes-Benz in Manhattan, so that the only way the salespeople could get their incentive was if they handed with a warm handoff the customer to the service department. There were some exceptions, as you can imagine, but for the most part, that was executed flawlessly. Suddenly we got them right into our service department, and then we could build that relationship that would spin them back in, assuming the service department did everything it was supposed to do during its touch points, back into the sales cycle at that dealership. So arrival moments, we used beacons at the Mercedes-Benz owned and operated. We literally would put an RFID chip in your car. When you came in the near field beacon, there would be a banner that said your name, and that would buzz the concierge to come down curbside to greet you for your service appointment. Yeah. My point is arrival moments matter massively. And so making that big welcome, that big flourish of excitement about somebody coming to you, of all people, when they have so many other choices to buy from. But focusing also on pain points, the ones that are really just killing them. Like people are having to work around things to get their needs met with you. Fixing some of those potholes in the journey are important. And then if you have this big moment, a great moment of service, then you just put a big old bow on it and celebrate it. I mean, that's why we put presents in very fancy packages with bows on them. People should be just grateful they got a present. But no, we elevate the emotional salience of that moment by wrapping paper and ribbons. And we have to focus on those real high moments, peak moments in the customer journey. And then the last moment I really focus on when I'm looking at building a generically solid experience is any ending moment. When we are closing out a sales moment and we're now handing them off, I want to celebrate that sales moment very solidly, appreciatively, with excitement, and then let them drift into the next transition moment as warmly as they can. When they leave our building, I think it's time for a fond farewell every single time, right? Like this is where a lot of salespeople screw it up. I got your money. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. So it's really exciting for those people who show you that they care about you even maybe more after you've made the purchase than they did when they first saw you walk in the door as a prospect. So I'm sorry that was a long-winded answer.
No, that
really,
was
I think
so
that's
good.
the foundational steps of a journey.
Yeah, I think that is phenomenal. I think to follow that up, Dan, before you go, is how do you create a phenomenal experience at each point? You know what I mean? Like, we have people that come in at that lower level, but we want to get them at that higher level, at that each touch point. How can we guide them there and get them there?
Well, first off, when you talk, I think you probably do that every single time anyway. So I'm not even really sure kind of why you need to ask that question. You just do whatever Andrea does. I think at a core level, we have to refresh ourselves. We have to kind of do mental sorbet in sales. The last customer could have been a pain in the rear. The last customer could have been too demanding. You may have lost the sale. There's a ton of things that happen in our psychology, and the ability to clear our mind of what just happened and take that breath and really refocus on the customer. The next customer is the most important customer. The one who's just walked in the door is the most important customer, because that last customer has already been transacted, and whatever happened. And now you have an opportunity to either carry energy or not. And I see lots and lots of salespeople who carry over a lot of stuff. And so one of the greatest arts, I think, is just to reposition yourself and celebrate. Would you do this to your mom? And, this next person could be your mom. Somebody's mom or somebody's dad or somebody's sister, somebody's brother. And we need to treat them with the excitement and respect that they deserve. They chose us.
They're the only customer. They're the only person in the world.
Yep.
I was very fortunate to be part of when Mercedes launched the Maybach.
Yes.
Which, to those who don't know, 20 years ago, they launched, it was like Toyota launched Lexus. Well, Mercedes launched Maybach. And it was a $250,000 experience. And the whole thing is a curated experience, like what we were talking about this whole half hour. I love what you're saying about, I wish we had RFID chips. I'm from the Fred Flintstone era. But anytime you talk to a client, they're the only client. And there's two words that I used quite a bit: curated, because everything, even like Starbucks, it's a special cup of coffee, even though they've done it 1,000,000 times that day. And the other thing is, I'm the concierge. I'm not the salesman. What do you need? Joe corrected me before, but no trouble at all. Glad to do it. What can I help you with? Set of Titleists on the first tee? Not a problem. I already know you're going to be there because we talked about it. You know their cigars. You know what single malt they have. You know them. And it's having quality versus quantity. Anyway, I was JR soliloquy here, but
no, I think it was so spot on. I think, I have a TikTok video that has gotten, 10,000 views or something like that, where I have pushed back on the no worries, right? As a service professional and somebody who teaches, master's degree level students on service excellence, in the service world, to say no worries or no problem is not what we should be doing.
Correct.
Really, truly, if I'm providing you service, of course it's no problem. I should be delighted to have the privilege of being able to provide you service. That's my job. Now, for somebody to drop something on the floor and I'm the customer, I say no worries. That's okay. But as a service provider, it's not the absence of worry. It is the delight to serve. And I think service professionalism has gotten a really bad rap. Like, we think of it as servitude and people who are beneath us who provide us service. In really, truth, sales is service. Every person who serves others well gets served in return. The best salespeople I know are servant leaders. They are concierge. They are looking at the horizon. They know what the transaction's about, but they know what the whole person care is about. And the more they care about people, the more people care about them, which in turn causes more people to get referred to them, which is the best kind of sales in the world.
Dr. Michelli,
the product.
Just a second, JR.
I didn't mean to, but you're not selling the product. They're buying you, and anything after that follows as a sale.
Amen.
I didn't mean to.
So the question: a lot of people don't interact with people face to face. It's very electronic. So can you give us some ideas about how to express customer service electronically. So for instance, like I got an email from a company and the return email was no reply, like instead of someone's name. What are some other things that people can do electronically to give better customer service?
Yeah, I just make sure people can get a hold of you. I mean, one of the problems with technology is that we've dehumanized most of the interactions, right? There are plenty of interactions that people are not going to want to get a hold of you. In fact, if I could avoid talking to a salesperson, or I can avoid talking to, some service professional, I'm going to try to do that and self-serve, particularly as an entrepreneur. I think I can do everything until I can't. But when I want to reach out to you and I go on your website and I can't find any contact information, there is no way. The phone tree is crazy. I've gone through 15 chatbots and I'm still trying to find some person. I want to opt human, and all I get is technology. So give them an opt human option. I think it doesn't have to be lots of them. But most of the really good folks understand that sales happen when you can answer a question for a customer who's on the fence. And so if you don't make yourself available to answer those questions in real time, if they can't get the solution in technology. I also think if you're going to use AI and technology, then really develop them with voices and tones and brand that gives some excitement. We have so much, robotics in the voice in all of this. If you can infuse some spirit and culture, I worked for Zappos for a long time, God rest his soul, Tony Hsieh. And Tony really taught that, every time you have an interaction with a customer, you have an opportunity to sell your brand. You talk about advertising, forget advertising. You have a full on in vivo demonstration of your brand whenever you have interaction. So why are we avoiding that? And if we're going to interact with technology, at least make that technology sizzle in terms of branding. Somebody like Andrea, I mean, if you can get her for 5 minutes in a virtual, I bet you're going to feel all the same excitement you're going to get from a lot of people if you're sitting across, knee to knee with them. People who really do this well know how to make this space exciting and dynamic, even though we don't have the benefit of being in the same room together.
How about AI, right? As things evolve in the AI automation space, what advice do you give clients on maintaining that personal human connection with AI?
Yeah, AIs can draft all the stuff you want it to draft, but you better go back over it one more time with your humanity and warm it up. And people are starting to see, I think, the formulaic nature of AI. So they start to feel emails that sound very AI-ish. I think in the other space, I would use AI a lot if I'm trying to get customer sentiment, if I'm trying to understand how customers feel about things, if I'm tracking what customer behavior is online. There are plenty of appropriate locations for AI to do things that we as humans don't do as well. But I'm still I've got a new book that'll be coming out it's called All Business is Personal. And the subtitle is being human centric and technology aided. And I think that is the key, is for us to not lose the human touch while we're aided by this amazing technology that I think is pretty transformative for most of us in business.
Yeah. Any suggestions on how to do that and how not to lose that human touch?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to look at what are the touch points where people want human. So I think in most every customer journey, we just went through a customer journey example a second ago, most every customer journey, we should have a fully digital path to the greatest degree possible. Some people do not want to talk to you, do not want to interface with you. So be it. Let them have that convenience. You should also have a high touch set of options, as much of that as you can afford to deliver in a brand. But since you probably can't have every single touch point high touch because it's more efficient for people to fill out forms digitally and get their questions answered in FAQ, whatever it might be, you're going to make sure that you have humans positioned at the most important critical moments in that journey, so that when I am likely to get stuck or need a person, you've already anticipated that for me and made that available to me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, before we start wrapping up, how can people get in touch with you? Because they really should.
Well, I mean, my name is mercilessly everywhere over the internet. We are shameless in that regard. It's just josephmichelli.com. On LinkedIn, I'm Joseph Michelli, and you can find me at TikTok, I think, with some variation thereof. And yeah, so just find my name, you'll find me. And I'm not selling anything. I really am not. I guess we're all selling all the time. My goal is to share information about how brands can be great. And however I can help people do that, I'm committed to that. It's part my core value is to serve those who serve well. And so if you're committed to elevating the service and lives of others, then we'll hang out together somewhere or another.
I love that. I love that. And we have a couple other panelists here. Jessica, I know you're sitting on a big, huge, giant question. Hit us. What do you got?
Oh, no, I was just wondering, I did jump in late, but, you're definitely driving the conversation, Coach Dan. It's great. I just wanted to know if every other person was able to ask a question too. So, I mean, at least for the one comment that I have, as far as making AI more human, for me, I do use a lot of ChatGPT, but I do a lot of training. I make the time to train the ChatGPT. So it is me, because to your point, I definitely recognize the nuance of the language.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. The more it can learn you, the more it can replicate you. I also think the other piece of that, the better you are at doing queries and helping it understand your audience and sensitizing it to your audience, the more it can get you there. I still think most of the time we want to take an eyeball on it before it goes out to shop.
Yeah.
It's really good, but occasionally it'll hallucinate and it'll create something that's just not real. And you just don't want to have to unwind that if you can avoid it. Brilliantly said, though, Jessica.
And Malaysia, do you have a question for us?
Well, you really touched on my question. So Dr. Michelli really kind of delved in, because I had a chance to meet with Howard Schultz in a meeting several months ago, and, heard his story about how he started Starbucks and what was his vision, and how, he was in Italy and it was like 100, Starbucks within a certain realm. And it was interesting that you talked about the new CEO who wants to bring back that customer experience. And so when Dan asked about, balancing that technology and AI with being able to provide that exceptional customer experience, I was just wondering about balancing it, but you also talked about the pain points. And so really it's going to depend on your particular client and what their needs are. So if we look at the Maybach, I don't know. You're not going to be sending AI tech. I don't even know.
So Maybach, they sent you to Germany to experience the entire reveal of this process. So you're not going to do that. You're right. And I think your point's great, though, because some people are going to want a Starbucks. They don't want to miss the train. They just want the coffee. Get the heck out of here. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. I want out of here. Other people are at least going to want a happy barista who's sharing the drink with some pride and respect in the way they hand it to you instead of throw it at you. And I think some of the subtle, basic things of service have been lost over the time. And there's also a need to enrich the knowledge of these baristas so they're not just pushing a button for coffee. What is espresso? Where do these beans come from? What is the sustainability of it? You need to make sure your team knows that, even if you don't share that every single time and delay a coffee delivery. Speed is important in that space. It's a quick service restaurant sector, right? But you still need to have people who know how to deliver hospitality as best they can in a quick environment. So it's going to be a future. I don't even have a sense. I'm glad I'm not consulting for them anymore. It's really complicated right now.
It is.
Dr. Michelli, last big question. You see in social media everywhere these nightmare customers. I mean, people are getting less and less kind and more demanding. So how do we bring in customer service when it comes to nightmare customers?
Yeah, so the Ritz-Carlton, founded by Cesar Ritz, the one who said the customer is never wrong, or the customer is always right, whichever it is. And he's wrong. He was wrong. I mean, the customer can be wrong. They are the customer. They deserve respect until they disrespect your team. So the reality is I am always setting limits with people. If you're a salesperson, you have to be compassionate and limit setting. People want everything they can get for nothing if they could get away with it. We are in the job of saying, that's just, here's what I can give you. Here's what's reasonable. Here's what we can do. I wish I could do that. That's not a possibility. You have to set limits with great respect to people. And when people start really disrespecting, then you need to invite them to a relationship with someone else. So for example, at the Ritz-Carlton, if you were to be mean to a lady or gentleman who's serving you, the focus of the brand is ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. So if you're mean to one of our ladies and gentlemen at the Ritz-Carlton, I would say to you, Coach Dan, you need to comport your behavior in keeping with that of a gentleman. And if you're incapable of doing that and you keep mistreating our service professional in a lowly way, I will say to you, Coach Dan, I need to invite you to go to the Four Seasons, and I will pay for your night's stay tonight at the Four Seasons so you do not continue to stay here at the Ritz-Carlton. Now, I lose customer, I lose potential lifetime customer value, but look what kind of customer I'm losing. I really trust that there are better customers to come. I also trust that by treating my employees and my team members with that kind of respect, then they will take the next guest and make sure they don't cause that guest to be lost. If I don't honor that with the relationship with my team member, they very well feel betrayed by me, mistreat the next guest, and I've lost lifetime value for a guest that we would rather have had. So I think you have to be willing to at times say, we're just not a fit. And until that time, you need to be firm and say, that behavior is not something we can do, or that offer is not something I can extend.
It seems like you're meeting disrespect with respect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think if you do that, if they can't, in the law of reciprocity, reciprocate respect, then at some point, the most respectful thing you can still do is to respect yourself and respect the exit.
Nice. What a great way to wrap this up. Dr. Joseph Michelli, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Jessica, JR, Malaysia, and even you, Coach Dan. It was awesome being with y'all.
Then just for our listeners, please do yourself a favor. Go to josephmichelli.com, JosephMichelli.com. You're going to get a tremendous amount of value. Thank you all for being here. And until next week, everybody, please do yourself a favor. Go out and sell something. Be well.
Let's talk about sales, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the challenges that may be. Let's talk about sales. A little bit.